Hello everyone, this is the HummingBird 3.1 RS or Race Spec Whoop. Flight controller is an F411 with the BMI 270. It has a 25 milliwatt VTX, so it doesn't go up to the normal power. It's made for those that have to race at 25 milliwatts. It does come with a 12 amp ESC. It is running Blue Jay at 48 kilohertz, and it has a built-in ELRS receiver. The motor solder pads are much larger on the top side. These things are tiny on the bottom. I don't know if I can do that soldering. Good job to whoever did that soldering. Camera is the NewBeeDrone BI. I don't know what they call this camera mount, but it just kind of wraps the camera around there. And I didn't feel like my camera shifted every once in a while. You may notice in some of my flight footage that you can see one whoop and not the other. It's got the G&B A30 battery connection, which is compatible with BT20, like this little guy. The BT20 works just fine. The motors are 0702 30,000 kV, but I don't see a kV print on the motor anywhere. And the props are the 31mm NewBeeDrone Z props. ELRS antenna is a wire off the main board. VTX is a micro UFL. Camera connector down here is still smaller than we use typically, but that will save weight. And to my surprise, they used metal motor screws. So we could replace those with Peak or Rennie screws and maybe save another almost half gram. Currently, it weighs just under 16.5 grams on my scale, so maybe we can get it under 16 grams. As a refresher, the Air 75 on my scale was just under 17 grams, and the Mobula 6 2024 edition weighs 17.5 grams. And it does have the Rennie screws on it, or Peak. Can't remember which it is. Other than the quad, you do get an extra set of props. You get a prop remover, which may or may not work for you, and an extra canopy, which is good. I recommend this prop remover, which you can get this or something similar to it on TinyWhoop or on Weebly.com. I've kind of got two. Oh, it also comes with some extra motor screws. It comes with the obligatory quick start guide and one sticker. And the price point on it, which might be compelling for a lot of people, I'm told it's supposed to be $89.99. I recommend you use one of these three batteries. You can get these two here in the United States. You can get this one internationally. You might be able to get the others internationally, but shipping, might be kind of steep. I did fly the 270 as well, but I found I got less flight time, so I'm not going to show any of that footage, but those true hardcore racers might want to go for this. I still got around 215 to 225 on my flight time, but on these batteries, I can get up to about 3 minutes. Okay, so this does have what, as you see on screen, this CAC, I guess it's called. I don't know a lot about that, and I didn't go digging around on their website to find out what that is. I think what it has to do with is kind of a failsafe for the firmware. They do use a custom fork of Betaflight. They have a special OSD chip that they have to program into Betaflight, and that CAC, I think is what it's called. I think that gives the ability to reset the firmware without like losing your settings or something like that. Plus, as you saw there on the OSD, it had all those elements in the middle of it. I looked at the OSD through Betaflight, and it had like, I think it was unknown 1, and I would uncheck that to make that go away, but on the next power cycle, it would come right back. So that's something to be aware of. Maybe there's another way of removing that if you don't like it, but I couldn't find it. There might be a CLI command or something like that. So this flight is going to be just about 3 minutes long, as I said, with the 300 milliwatt or milliamp batteries, those ones I showed on screen, that are relatively fresh, because I noticed the same battery, that might have a couple hundred cycles on them, I got, 215 to 230 on the flight time on those. So fresh batteries, like I showed you, you'll get about, I would say, me just trying to be conservative is, 250, 255, flying around like I do here. Of course, there's crash number 1 as I bounced just right off that counter, just a bad line. Didn't correct enough in order to make my line there, so bonked into it. And that was something that I thought, with this very light airframe, I think they tout the frame at weighing 2.4 grams, that it withstood all my crashing. I do think the battery tray is a little bit, I don't want to say oversized. Maybe I should just save that for when we go back to the desk. The batteries with the plastic caps, they can kind of shove through the battery tray, and so they're pulling on your battery lead if you have more crashes. The battery never came out like backwards because of the way it connects to the battery connector, and the fact that BT20 and A30 connector is pretty solid. I didn't have any problems with batteries coming out. They just kind of shoved through the battery tray. I think another thing to probably call out, and I probably should have done it when I was downstairs, is the BI camera. I noticed in the basement it got kind of blown out when I would go from the storage area out towards the finished area of the basement, and through that doorway especially. So you may want to go back and look at that just to make sure if you're thinking about something like this, that you get a good idea of how the camera is going to operate. And you see there on screen, when we would normally see warnings, it would say anti-leaving, and just like when you armed, it says let's go. That's part of that CAC firmware that they're touting on their website. And you can see even with the land now that we get those arrows. Our flight has ended. It's 3 minutes. I thought it was 2:55. I'm watching too many other flights. But when we go back to the home screen, we'll see our battery is right there in the middle. Is also on the left hand. It's 3.6, so it could have flown even longer. Moving on to our outside flight. This is actually something that's surprised me, is watch the punch outs outside. Now this is a very calm day. The weather report was that we had winds of 10 miles an hour, but when I was out here, and this is I did some flying before lunch, and then I did some more flying right after lunch, and I think I had an early lunch. I'm sorry I didn't write down on my notes. So right around, the noon time as far as my time, those black bars you saw across the screen, that's sync lock from rapid fire. I think most of our veterans are used to seeing that from time to time now. Some of our newer folks may not have seen that before. That's just something that we have to suffer with rapid fire and these blending of sync pulses and cameras. It didn't happen every time, but it happens occasionally. So those punches, I was really surprised. This is 16.5 grams, 1S, 31 millimeter prop. I thought those punch outs were, at the very least, they were fun. Now, of course, we're only running 25 milliwatts, so when I got around the chimney side of the house, we get some breakup. When I got down to the basement, we got some breakup. My RF environment is actually pretty good, so depending upon where you're flying yours, it may not have this clarity of signal at all. I do have a video that I have been linking in the video description for the last 6 or 8 months about my video setup. Something that you might want to take note of. 3 power loops in a row. I was just kind of having fun and flying her around, so I just kept doing them like a loop-de-loop-de-loop, and then the bush tree plant thingy got me. Anyways, that happens quite a bit. And I don't mind including crashes. Of course, I had lots of crashes, and I had that little speed run teaser thing. Again, if this is new information for you, or if it's old information, I apologize. But I do kind of at the end of my flying, specifically with whoops, I'll do like a speed run, which is kind of a fun thing I do for pushing myself. And it's actually a durability test as well, because when you try to go faster inside, you just invariably crash more. So you get a better idea of how it will take crashes when other people have it. Because if I fly these things gingerly that are sent in by the manufacturers for review, that's one giant aspect that I haven't tested is, and you crash it, and does it survive? And that's why I give these quads away after the reviews are well done, and I don't sell them, is because I think the value in a review is less if we're not crashing them. So 233 outside, you can see our battery pop back up well above 3.5 volts, so well above where I normally want them to go. Also notice the motor limit at 100, it's fine, but the throttle limit is set to 98. I think the only thing that I would want to call out, I mentioned it in the quick specs, whoever builds these things, they must have a really fine tip, and they're probably wearing a magnifier, but this is one of the smaller tips. I don't know what this tip is called. It came with this particular, where's it at? Jeez. Oh, I can't even see it. So I don't know. It came with this soldering iron, dang it. And it's really fine, and I've been using this on most micros, but those are some super tiny pads. The nice thing is, if you choose to replace your motors, you can go with the larger pads that are right up here on top. Those are much more doable. The spacing between them is better. That's what I would definitely be doing. I would not even try to go back to these pads. But to each their own. It's just, they're so small. So small. That's kind of my biggest complaint. I didn't have problems with, like some people have asked me about the props getting stuck underneath the whoops. I didn't have any issues with that. Maybe I didn't crash it just right to where that would happen. I thought it was a little bit odd that they went up with the pigtail where I think they could have went down with the pigtail and saved some length and gotten even another tenth or 0.2 of a gram. So if you're an extremist and you're out racing, that I can see would be something that you might want to do, is to reverse that pigtail and come down here and then put a 90 degree in the end and make it as short as you can. I was wanting to show the battery tray because I had lots of crashes, as I mentioned, and I would put together a crash reel. Well, I can put together a crash reel. It's so dang tedious. But I would find the battery often. Like, you would look at this and think, well, that's the same normal size. But I would actually find my battery inside like this with, it just pretty much just holding on with the pigtail. So that's something to be aware of, is that the battery, even with this cap on the end of it, can shove through when you have those crashes. And I mean, maybe that's not new information. Maybe that's known information from some of our racers. I don't know. It was the first time that I can recall, at least in my memory, seeing that. And it's due to the fact that we're trying to make these frames so lightweight that there just isn't a lot of structure here to hold things together. We've only got this bit in the middle, but as you can see, it pushed right through without much fuss. Now, NewBeeDrone does something interesting on their frames to where they support the battery up off the USB port with these little nubbins. It's going to be hard for me to get a real good shot of those. These little nubbins in here, they support the battery from the bottom side. And if you can see there, it actually goes just a touch over the USB port, so it's not banging, or it should not be banging into your USB port and wearing that sucker down. I did mention that I felt that the camera would get kind of not square. This canopy just kind of wraps around it. You thread the tail through the loop, and that's how it secures it down. So every once in a while I was kind of fussing with my camera because I felt like it was a little bit off kilter to one side or the other. There is, you could get more camera angle out of it. You can see there's holes. I think there's supposed to be 2 holes like right where my finger is. Camera, focus again, please. Let me get a pen out here to poke. I think there's supposed to be holes here, but in my print, it doesn't look like it made it a real clear hole, but I think there is a hole, and then another one here, and then another one there, and then another one up there. So I think there's 4 additional holes you can use, but obviously with it kind of with this Humpty loop in there, if you apply some heat, like say you wanted this, but you didn't want very much camera angle, you could apply some heat to the print, just kind of press and hold it forward, and maybe hopefully get it to take a shape that puts it at the camera angle that you want. But this is the race spec. This is for racers. That's why it's 25 milliwatts. That's kind of a race spec that's required at races, so you can get as many people in the air at the time without stomping all over each other. So that for the general freestyler, you're probably still looking at one of these. Sorry, that was out of shot. You're probably still looking at these just because they're similar in weight and they're similar in flight time, but they have much more powerful VTXs that give you the option of running and getting a more clear signal back to your goggles so that you can enjoy the analog picture a little bit better. You can fly further away. You can get objects between you and the quad, versus at 25 milliwatts, once you start to get something between you and the quad, the video does tend to break down pretty quickly. But in whoop races, I think it's pretty rare that you get an object much larger than a gate or a box or a tube that's actually part of the race between you and the quad. So I think that question's probably going to come up quite a bit, is do I get this or do I get one of these? Well, if you're going to race, if you're truly going to race, you probably want to get the NewBeeDrone. But if you're more of a general whoop flyer, or you don't race, you don't go to races, maybe even fly in a racing style like I do, but you don't go to races, you're probably looking at purchasing one of these. Matter of fact, I think you probably just want to go with the Air 65 because it's a touch lighter, and so far I think I've had more flights and I think it performs just a little bit better. Nope, I'm still running metal screws on this particular one. The one downside, if you didn't see the review on this, the one downside is that it doesn't have the USB connection down there. It's just got that connector, so you have a little dongle that you have to use. But at $89, these prices of these whoops are getting super compelling, and I'm so happy that we have now a US-based company in California, NewBeeDrone, who's offering a price competitive Whoop out there for not just our racers, but if you're a general pilot, you can, you don't have to race. If you just want to fly for fun, you can fly this as well. And at $89.99, it's really hard to beat in the US. Because I think these are both out of stock everywhere in the US. So you have to order from international if you're in the US. Now, if you're international, you might be able to find any of these and not find this. Because of shipping costs or whatnot. But I do believe NewBeeDrone has an AliExpress store, so maybe they'll get some on AliExpress and make it more viable for our international friends to be able to pick one up. I'll check that out. Also, I'll put a link that'll be an affiliate link to NewBeeDrone's product page for this particular quad down in the video description. I do suggest picking up some batteries. NewBeeDrone does have BT20 batteries as well that I believe are the same as all these others, but in the moment I can't vouch for that because I haven't bought BT20 batteries from NewBeeDrone in a while. So I think they're the same, but I just don't want to commit to that. That is the HummingBird 3.1 RS or race spec. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.